Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon sectional. A brief word about our presenter this afternoon. Jang is a resource development specialist for web-based liturgical resources at the Calvin Institute of Christian Worship and is director of music at Woodlawn Christian Reformed Church. He is a graduate of Calvin University, Music Theory and Psychology, and Calvin Theological Seminary, where he achieved an MDiv. He holds a certificate in editing from the University of Chicago Graham School and is currently finishing his Master of Theology at Calvin Theological Seminary. Chan loves enjoying coffee with cheesecake, reading historical fiction, and playing and watching soccer. And we so look forward to your presentation this afternoon. Thank you.
Welcome to this session about Korean songs, and thank you so much for coming. I will be primarily singing and speaking here from the piano, and I can see you, everyone, so that's great. I want to make sure that everybody has the handout, either from the app, SCAD or SHEDGE. The PDF is the identical version of the handout that I have. If you prefer printed copies, can you, yeah. I have a little girl who is almost 1 year old, and when she sees a body of water, she wants to just jump in. No introduction. Kind of in that spirit, we're gonna open this time with a little bit of singing, okay? So in your handout, this is page 26. Page 26. And let's sing right from the English. Oh, we'll skip the Korean, we'll go right to the English version. Here we go, In the Shade.
In the shade of God who watches over you, neither sun by day, nor the moon by night, will disturb your holy resting place. God will shield you from their harm.
In the hands.
In the hands of God who watches over you, evil has no hold. You can rest secure. God will guard you as you come and go, and will walk with you now and evermore. Lift your eyes up to the mighty, who will save you, who will heal you, pray. Turn your weary eyes to the God who heals, maker of heaven and earth.
Great sight readers in this room. A beautiful setting on Psalm 121. And this is perhaps one of the most well-known contemporary Korean songs that are sung in mainline Protestant worship setting. The Hymn Society, I think, is one of the leading groups that explore these global songs, especially the songs from Korea. Um, in, However, we don't really come across as many Korean songs, I would say, as we maybe would encounter songs from, say, Mexico or songs from China. Um, Probably the one song that many of us know would be "Oh So So," and yeah, I see the heads nodding. Probably the influence of Itolo from the songbook "The Sound of Bamboo." Yeah, yeah. Ironically, that song is probably not the most Koreans would recognize. And so this is my personal story from my college years at Calvin College. The hymnal "Lift Up Your Hearts" came out in 2013. Also So was included in that hymnal. And I looked at it and I was puzzled. Why is this song representing the Korean sacred music? There is some good reason and history behind that that I didn't recognize at the time. So over the next 10 or 12 years, I see two things. One is that I love the Anglican tradition from which the song also comes from. That is not mainline Protestant. It is a very much a minority Christian group in Korea that sometimes Protestants would hesitate to borrow things from because they are too Catholic. So I want my Protestant brothers and sisters to know more about this tradition and sing more of their songs because they're beautiful. In the meantime, here in the North America setting, we know Also So, and we may know some other songs by Gun Young Lee, but we don't really know a lot of the songs that mainline Protestants in Korea actually sing. So I see the two gaps, and this session is part of my project at Calvin Institute of Christian Worship that would try to close these two gaps. I am introducing some more songs by Anglican composers like Gun Young Lee. At the same time, I'm also initiating the translation process of the mainline Protestant evangelical songs. And In the Shade of God that we just sang just now is a prime example of one of those evangelical songs that we know very well. Okay, so you will see from the table of contents, so that's the very first page of the handout, that some songs are already translated, other songs are not. So it kind of shows that this is an ongoing project of mine that is developing right now. So in this session, we will start from the Anglican tradition, and we'll kind of travel in time. And as we sing, I will stop and explain, give you some context of what's going on behind, let's say, the song. Some spirituality and Christian history in Korea will be mentioned as well. Okay, so let's go to page 8. Another tune by Gun Young Lee. Text is actually from the 6th century, translated by John and Leo. Let's sing verses 1, 2, and 4. 1, 2, and 4. verse 2. Verse 4. So what's going on in this song? Ancient text, but a tune from 1988. Gan Young Lee is painting a scene. It's a funeral march. Korea is a very mountainous country. So 70% of our landscape is either mountain or hill. So in the ancient times, traditionally, if someone dies, the body would be in the house. There would not be a wide, kind of flat land for burial. Many people would be buried in a mountaintop or a hillside. And it's beautiful because from the hillside you can see the open country, how the landscape kind of pans out. That journey is quite a hike. You have to go up, and sometimes go up and down a valley and hill, another valley and hill, another valley and hill. So if you see the melody, that's the journey that the song is taking. It's one hill, another one. And the tenor line is the heaving sigh. The pallbearers, they are carrying the body. They're carrying this heavy. There are about 12 of them, and they're carrying this huge casket. And with the leader, they kind of call and respond. So it's a sigh. They're working their body, and the bass line, it's the bell that rings with their step. So it's a funeral march. The instruction says, sing this on Good Friday. And I can also see this sung on Palm Sunday as an introit. That will work beautifully. Perhaps Maundy Thursday too, as an introit. Just imagine choir singing maybe verses 1 through 4 and congregation responding in verse 5, doxology. Let's go to the next song, and that's page 7, right before Sing My Tongue. And this one is untranslated, and as you can see, I provide the English version on the right side. It's not versified, so you can't really sing with it, but it's the literal translation of the Korean, and it's based on Psalm 121. So on this one, I would like you to hum with me, maybe once. Yeah, I wanted to share this song with you, although it's not translated, because I think it captures the idea of beauty that we Koreans have. So what is beautiful to Koreans? I think it's beauty in modesty. And as you can see in this tune, another tune by Gan Young-lee, in fact, you see the harmonization. You see the mild harmonic cadences. It's not, say, not that. That's too spicy. Not mild. And then it kind of breaks the boundaries in between the major key and the minor key. It can very flexibly go in between. So in that way, it's more folksy. And then there are some one or two bright, or I'd say spicy moments. So yeah, that chord, just a little bit of kick. So as we Koreans say, beauty is modest yet not shabby, beautiful yet not extravagant. And Gan Young-lee is one of the composers in Korea that wants to bring out Koreanness in the tune. Not many composers want to do that, because the Western music is the ideal. Our Korean folk songs, traditional songs, indigenous songs, they have purposes. Like certain songs would be used to worship the ancestors. Other songs would be used to party. Other songs would be used to say for really formal ceremony in the kingdom, or in say a wedding like that. When Christianity came in, there was no category for church music. So are you going to pull these songs that had specific purposes into church and make them into indigenous tunes? Early Korean Christians were opposed to that idea. But in 1980s, when Gan Young-lee started actively composing, he lamented the fact that when Koreans said music, it was assumed that they were talking about Western music. And he began to ask the question, what is Korean about Korean music? Can we make people sing it? Can we make people sing it in worship? So these are the questions that he is asking as he writes these tunes. That question of identity, can we be Koreans when we sing? That question of identity still exists very much exists in our worship setting. Okay, if you have any questions, anytime, raise your hand and yes, Marty. I want to make sure that the people who are joining us virtually can hear it.
I really enjoy the way you express the Koreanness of the harmonization. And I'm wondering, these are four-part harmonies. Is that indicative of Korean culture? Would they more likely be monophonic?
No. Do you want to hear a quote? It's really funny. Let me pull this up. This is 1915. Words by Eli Maury, and he is a missionary in Korea at that time, 1915. In general, the Korean people, are not used to hearing four-part singing. One man once said, after hearing a college quartet, that that if only one of them could sing, and that if the rest had kept silent, it would have been a pleasure to hear it. So this man didn't get the point of having a quartet. Another man at another time, on hearing a chorus of about 30 voices, said that it was a thing worth running away from. So that's where the Koreans began when they first received Western music. Gun Young Lee is trained in Western music. I know that he is an avid lover of operas. And in fact, he directs the operatic program in the city of Seoul. So another question that he's asking is, how can we, when Korean songs become too indigenous, it becomes too distant from the popularity, the people. To bring it down a little bit, you need some kind of Western standards. Does that answer your question? Good. Any other questions before we move on to the next song? Great. Okay. Let's go to page 11. Another song from the Anglican tradition, so liturgical setting. But another composer. And this song is an introit during Advent, so that's the specific use. Let's do this. I will sing the choir. You can be all. So I'll start and you respond.
Christ Emmanuel, Maranatha, fill us with your love. Christ, come, O Christ Emmanuel, Maranatha, fill us with your love. In your peace,
Nice, and it's designed in the Korean hymnal so that it can be sung as choir versus all, of course soloist versus all, higher voices versus lower voices, and in fact everybody can sing everything. That's also a fair way to do it. I want to talk about the issue of density in the text. Especially regarding to this song. And you will get what I mean by density when you hear me explain this. So in the original Korean text, the first two lines say this: Come, Lord, to us, and lead us to your grace. That's okay. Come, Lord, to us, and lead us to your grace. That's only 10 syllables. Okay? What we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. About 20 syllables to cover. So that means that the Korean text, the original text, is less dense than the English text, right? In other words, you can say you can say a lot, but not really mean much in Korean. On the other hand, you can say just a little bit and then mean a lot in English. The challenge is that when you have leftover syllables, when you are translating, how do you do that? With what would you fill the space? The translator for this one is actually in this room, this is Martin. Martin Tell, I think he does this brilliantly. He fills in with, "O Lord Emmanuel," so that's a very appropriate Advent title of Christ. Maranatha, that's Aramaic for "Come, Lord," right? And then "Come, lead us to your grace." That is actually in Korean. So he fills in the gap with other languages, from Hebrew, from Aramaic. By the way, "주여" means "O Lord" in Korean, and "그리스도여" means "O Christ" in Korean. So that's one way that we deal with density. There are other ways, but we may come across those later in our session. Okay, let's go to page 50. Page 15. We talked a little bit about indigenous music, Korean music, and how to do that in church setting. This is an example of some of indigenous rhythm, the rhythmic pattern coming into the song. So the traditional rhythmic pattern sounds like this. Yeah? Okay, so I'll teach you some Korean, okay? And let's try this. Okay, so repeat after me, please. 예수님이 좋은 걸 어떡합니까? Yeah, do that again. So second line, same thing. 예수님이 좋은 걸 어떡합니까? Yeah, so now you know 75% of the song. Great. Yeah, okay. Third line. 세상에 어떤 것도 비길 수 없네. Great. And that means the translation is below, I love Jesus, so what? It has the carefreeness, freedom in the music. And I think the tune and the rhythm really captures that well. It's a very loose translation. It's more like, I love Jesus, so what am I supposed to do? Or I love Jesus, so sue me. Something like that. Here we go.
예수님이 좋은 걸 세상의 어떤 것도 이길 수 없네. 예수님이 좋은 날 어떡합니까?
Something like that. I can see this being translated. Maybe even you can translate just the third line, verses 1 and 2. And I can see even non-Korean speaking congregation learning, I love Jesus, so what? That language in the original Korean and be able to sing it pretty quickly. Oh, yes. Yeah? EUN. Oh, okay. Ah, yes, yes. Okay, so your name, please? Andrew's question is the second measure, EUN. How do you pronounce that? Yeah, so clenching your teeth is great. It's a flat vowel. So 조은, 조은. Smile and say 은. Yeah, it's really hard to capture that in English. So we have to compromise with E and U. So whenever you see EU, that's the vowel that we're using. 좋은 것. Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah. At this point, it's an experimental period, so I can't really point you to a central place. If you would like to follow, because over the years, the goal is to publish these songs, so that the congregations can use them. So follow what Calvin Institute of Christian Worship is doing. So for example, this year's worship symposium, you don't even have to be there in person. The worship services will be live streamed. Some of these songs will be featured then. And I hope that, the songs can be published soon so that we have that central place to go for licensing. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 13, page 13. And I would like you to listen to the verses, and I will sing this for you in Korean, but I have provided the literal translation, so not versified translation, but literal translation below the text. But I would like you to sing the refrain in Korean, and I'll teach you how to say this. So repeat after me, please. 일어나, 걸어라, 내가 새 힘을 주리니. 자, 일어나, 너 걸어라, 내 너를 도우리. Yeah. Rise up and walk, I will strengthen you. Rise up you and walk, I will help you.
나의 등 뒤에서 나를 도우시는 주, 나의 인생길에서 지치고 곤하여 일어나 일어나 걸어라 내가 새 힘을 주리니 일어나 너 걸어라 내 너를
I would stop there. We had our own version of the worship war in South Korea, and this was at the forefront. There are many factors, musical factors, theological factors, that have caused the conflict. I think in this case, in this song, what was really problematic was this language that was so intimate. How can you be so intimate with God? In this text, Christ is depicted as if he has flesh that you can touch, that he can touch us. Christ is depicted as somebody who says something actually to us. Rise up and walk. And you can hear him as if you would hear him in person. In the Korean Christianity, I think the relationship between God and us is more distant by default. And in the worship services, these contemporary songs, kind of folksy songs, would be placed where prelude usually is in our Westerns. I am generalizing the Korean context, so to explain this dynamic. And then after the intimate prelude, prayer moment is done, then the pastor comes up and rings the bell, and there is the choral introit, and then that's actually when the worship service, the liturgy proper, begins. So in a way, these songs don't even belong to our liturgy proper because of this intimate language between Christ and us. Now, 40 years later, so this was composed, I think, 40 years ago. 40 years later, we're more used to this intimacy, I think. But still, these songs would not be put in the liturgy proper because it's not 4 parts, Western. When Christianity came to Korea and was first established, the West was actually not the colonizing force. Japan was. The West, in fact, was a tremendous help to overcome that history of colonization and later the history of the Korean War. So whereas other third world countries in maybe, third culture countries, colonization is an issue. I think in the Korean setting, colonization is an issue the other way. We welcome the West too much. We like the West too much. So when we come up with our own things, people will express some hesitation. I wanted to do this with you. So do you see the second line of refrain? The second line of the same song, page 13. The song is written so that you can insert your name. Okay? So let's do that. So for me, it would be something like, oh, Chan, or I don't know, oh, Wayne, oh, Sweet Hong, oh, Andrew, yeah? So I will sing verse 3 in Korean, and hum with me, please. But when we go to the refrain, sing the second line with your name in it. And notice how intimate this song can become.
나 잔잔한 미소로 바라보시며 나를 재촉하시네.
Your name,
오체 일어나라 내가 새 힘을 주리니 일어나 너 걸어라 내 너를
yeah, did you notice how personal it suddenly, so personal it became, right? And can you imagine why the older generation could be a little bit opposed to this kind of intimacy? Okay. Moving on to 32, page 32. And let's sing this together in English. God of my help.
God of my help, look and see. Hold my broken heart, come my God of my hope, stay with me. Through the lonely hours, through my fear.
Refrain.
All turns to dust, vain treasures to ashes. Flowers will fade, but joy loves no end. Each breath is grace, each heartbeat your mercy. So while I have life, I trust in you.
Verse 2.
Love of my Lord, perfect love, drive away my fear from my soul. Of my God, perfect grace.
Gold.
Gold turns to dust, vain treasures to ashes.
Carrying the theme of intimacy or maybe proximity in worship between God and his people. And how does that apply to the process of translating? That's a really interesting question. Because let me read to you the literal meaning of the Korean text. God is my help. He looks and sees. He holds my broken heart. He counts my tears. Or verse 2. The love of my Lord is in me. His love fills me or floods my soul. What's different? The original text is in the third person. The English translation is in the second person. I remember when Martin sent me this draft, Martin Tell, he's right there, so he's the translator, and he sent me two versions, the English translation and versification with the third person language. That would be technically more accurate to the original text, right? And the version that he really leans on, and that is the version with the second person. And I saw this and I thought, oh my goodness, this is too much of a departure. Can we do this? So I had to take a walk and, came back to my computer and I thought, why do I like the second person more? I couldn't answer that question at that time. But later I realized that even though the original text is in the third person, the proximity, the intimacy that the song wants to convey is really, it's closer than that. And in fact, when we Koreans address God, we would kind of do it in the 2.5 person. Yeah? Of course we do second person too, but often it's okay to address God in the third person, and then the perception is we're still addressing something to God. We're not just describing something about God. So the translation, I think, masterfully captures that proximity, that intimacy, that I couldn't go with the more accurate version. Don't you think that's really interesting? So the implication is this. The translation may capture the exact meaning, but by doing so, completely miss the mark. In fact, when the translation beautifully departs from the original meaning, it produces something that is more accurate, more meaningful. So that's the first way I'd like to defend the second person. Another reason that I want to defend the second person is that when we sing bilingually, I don't want the translation to be able to stand alone almost. I want the translation and I want the original text to actually depend on each other in a way that the translation would not just translate the original meaning, but in fact enlighten the original meaning, add to the original meaning. And I think the translation here does that. It not only captures God as somebody that we look up to and we speak about him, but also we speak to him. Questions about that? Good. Let's move on to, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, great question. So Martin's question is gender language or gender neutral, is there? Or pronouns for third person. God is always he. That's just the way it is in Korean. And I can't really speak for my sisters, my Korean sisters, but they don't seem to mind. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah, it's no, I think human people can be he or she. Right. Yeah. So God would be he, but interestingly, in this song, so the Lord is in Korean actually just one syllable. So in this song, there's no he, there's only the Lord. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, interesting. Thank you. So Sui Hong's question for the people who are joining virtually is about the respective language in Korean, and is that reflected in the songs as well? And the answer is yes. I would say when you try to fit the text into a melody, it can be more forgiving, but the respective language is there. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, though. So the question is, if there is the respective language present in the text, um, does it affect the intimacy, the proximity or distance between God and His people? And I'd say yes and no, because when you think of a relationship between a parent and a child, you can't say that because they are using the respective language, their relationship is not intimate, right? You can still be very close to each other when you speak in the respective inflection or language. Thank you. Okay, I'm watching the time. Ooh, 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 ooh. Let's go to 27, page 27. So we talked a little bit about intimacy, and that's certainly an issue or a topic when we talk about the Korean songs. Another huge topic is missions and revival. Let's sing this first, and then I'll explain the story behind this song. So, page 27, let's all sing in English. 3, and
May the love of God spring up in your soul like a healing stream in the wilderness flowing, and may the love of God quench the thirsty soul, feed the hungry heart. May the love of God flow through you.
sing it one more time.
May the love of God spring up in your soul like a healing stream in the wilderness flowing, and may the love of God quench the thirsty soul, feed the hungry heart. May the love of God flow through you.
This would be in the category of songs of blessing. And we have many, many songs of blessing. In fact, this song I remember particularly and fondly because it was our song of blessing every single Sunday. Every single Sunday for about 8 years in the church that my father led. And I was often the pianist, and honestly, I got really sick about really sick of this song. um, but looking back, it's a beautiful song. Blessing is a liturgical practice in our congregations. Every single Sunday we had newcomers. And so we would have them introduce themselves, and at the end of their introduction, we all sing this together. And we would sing with our hands extended to them and to each other. This song comes from the missional movement, the revival movement in Korea. The composer
was interacting with this missionary from Kenya. And this missionary's primary work was to dig wells in Kenya, because the communities there lacked healthy, clean water, and there were disease and death because of the lack of access to a clean source of water. And sometimes they would just dig the wells and leave. They don't even get to preach the Christ. The composer was really struck by that the mission work kind of had nothing to do with preaching the gospel through words. It was preaching the gospel through the act of help, the act of service. And by composing this song, the composer wanted to bless that missionary and his work, but also kind of speak to the complacent Korean churches in South Korea that would refuse to live a life of service that is costly. So just as the love of God, just as the water flows from you and from your wells, may the love of God also flow and spring up in the community. And my suggestion is that you use this as a baptismal blessing as well. I think it would be a great use of this song. Kind of carrying the mission theme, like I said, in the early 2000s and even since late 1990s, Koreans began to send many missionaries in over 167 countries at one point. And I don't really remember the exact numbers, but tens of thousands of people serving overseas. And that missional revival movement was also present in the domestic churches as well. So let's go to page 29. Page 29. The composer of this song is Hyungwon Ko. I don't have the English version of his name on page 29, but there is his English name on page 31 in the copyright lines. And Hyungwon Ko is probably the most key composer when it comes to revivalism and mission in South Korea. And he wrote a lot of songs that are about calling, the coming of God's kingdom, evangelism, and renewal. And I want to point out the beauty of this text on page 29. I have the English literal translation. And when I read this, I think of Paul and Silas in prison, and they're singing. It says, bound, but only by your love alone, my soul rejoicing sings. On this hill of hope, in this land of joy, I offer you my love. Imprisoned, but by your presence alone, my soul rejoicing sings. On this hill of calling. So in the previous paragraph, it was on this hill of hope, and now it's on this hill of calling. And in Korean, hope is 소망, and calling is 소명. So the composer is playing with the words, the similarity in pronunciation, but hope and calling, they go together. I offer you my praise. On this hill, the hill is such a key word in our songs, because not just because our landscapes is a lot of hills and mountains, but there is a very famous Korean song that is based on Joshua, and you remember the character Caleb, and when they reach the land of Canaan, he says to Joshua, give me this mountain. or give me this hill so that I can conquer in the name of God. So Koreans, in this song, it takes the text and it interprets literally. Give me this hill, these people who have not heard Jesus, so that I can conquer or gain this land. So that's the movement behind the language of hope, mission, calling, and lots of hills. Can we hum this tune together? Maybe just once. And repeat. Yeah, so pentatonic melody, simple, but then at the end, a little spice there. So very typical Korean, I would say. And this song is so characteristic, and it can represent the movement so much that I would love to see a translation, a really good translation of this song someday. We have about 5 more minutes, and I have one more song left that we can sing, perhaps if we have time, but I would like to open up for questions. I don't want to miss, yes. Yep. Yeah, a couple Sundays ago we had O Danny Boy tune in our worship. So this is predominantly Dutch white congregation that I serve as the director of music. Yeah, I liked it. It was O Christ the Same, and O Christ the Same through all our life's pages. It worked really well, but I got some comments from the congregation saying, this is too Irish sentimental. I think that the same sentiment Koreans will have against a tune like Arirang. So I know Emily Brink did this. She inserted a religious text to this tune. It's dicey. It's a dicey choice. Beautiful. Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay.
I've heard some, somewhere I saw a sacred text set to the English folk song, the American folk song, The Streets of Laredo.
Yeah.
And it's just, all I could think about was cowboys and, you know, I couldn't enter into whatever the text was talking about.
Yeah. So too nationalistic, sentimental. But who knows, in 50 years? Any other questions? Yes, Jonathan.
You had just mentioned earlier that there were the worship wars that happened in Korea, analogous to the ones that happened here. Do you have a time period that you would kind of bookend that with?
Yeah, so I'd say contemporary worship music began 1970s, mainly in college campuses. And I mean, in small ways and in big ways, that still continues. The war still continues. But I think the height of it was perhaps 1970s through early 2000s.
So roughly simultaneous to here.
Yes. Any other questions? Yeah. Yes. Wait a minute, please. There's a microphone coming.
When you're writing lyrics, do you still need to pay attention to the intonation matching the melody
Oh,
in Korean?
intonation matching the melody? No, it is not. No. I know
need.
Chinese is. I lived in China for 8 years, so I know that Chinese is a tonal language. Korean doesn't have that. So it's a very easy language to write.
So I want to ask you a kind of prophetic question. Where do you think Korean church music is headed? I mean, right now you've talked a little bit about what's happening in the past history, but if you were to project 5 and 20 years from now, where do you think Korean church music is headed?
It's a little bit of a prediction, and it's a little bit of a hope as well. The ecumenical movement happened here in the North American context from the 1960s, and it was very active in 1990s, 2000, into the 2000s. That kind of active ecumenical conversation, musically too, is not happening in Korea. But slowly there are efforts. So for example, an Anglican church in Seoul and a Presbyterian church in Seoul, once in a while, they swap places. They're worshiping. They swap the church. So the Anglican church people go to the Presbyterian church and worship there, and the Presbyterian church people go to the Anglican church. So that kind of effort exists. And younger people nowadays, I hear from my seminary friends that they are more open to exploring the spirituality of the Anglicans or the Lutherans in Korea. So I hope and I predict that in the next decade or so, we will see a lot of these conversations between different denominations and traditions. Let me close with this, maybe not with a song, but another vision. When the Western missionaries came to South Korea, they kind of half gave up on translating all their Western texts into Korean because it was such a hard and time-consuming process. And in the process, they said, you know what? It would be best if Koreans rise up one day, write their own music, and sing their own tunes. Now that we have those tunes and texts, my hope and vision is that we can benefit the broader church in the U.S. and in North America. And I hope that the Himsa Society, you, and the people who work around these instances of text and tunes would be the pioneers in this effort. So in Korean, in Ephesians 5, well, in English, in Ephesians 5, Paul says, speak to one another with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. In Korean translation of the same text, it says, 화답 one another. And 화답 is such a beautiful word. It means to do a certain act in return for another's poem or song. So literally it means a harmonious answer. So I hope that this project of delivering these Korean songs into our North American context would be an act of hada, a harmonious answer from the Korean people to the people here. Thank you so much for singing with me and listening in this session. It was a joy to share these songs with you. So if you have any questions, come to me, please. I would love to talk about this more. If you need my contact information, I forgot to include that in the packet, but I will share that to you as well. Thank you so much again. God bless.